Do you have a few minutes to make an elegant Valentine dessert for you and your sweetie or bestie? This beautiful chocolate covered cherry cake in the shape of a heart with a maraschino cherry frosting is simple, sweet, and perfect for a quick Valentine's Day dessert or anytime you're craving chocolate. Microwavable mug cakes and desserts have been all the rage for over a decade now. I have made more of them than I can count. These little cakes are single serving, or a little more maybe, super quick to make and homemade. What could be better? I woke up in the middle of the night a few months ago with the idea of a chocolate covered cherry version that seemed perfect for Valentine's Day. That recipe idea went through recipe testing to become what I'm sharing with you today. Let's get to it. For the ingredients, you'll need coconut oil or butter, brown sugar, vanilla, milk, all-purpose flour, cocoa powder, salt, baking powder, chocolate chips, either minis or regular, and maraschino cherries. The frosting also includes butter, powdered sugar, maraschino cherry juice, red food coloring, and optional chocolate shavings. These ingredients are typical of a cake, and since it's Valentine's Day, we're going elegant and not cutting corners. However, I'll give you some shortcuts along the way. We're going to begin by making the chocolate cherry cake. So grease a 500 milliliter, which is a half quart microwavable safe dish. You can use a cereal bowl as long as it will go in the microwave. And then you're going to add 2 sheets of parchment paper. Now, if you wanted to do this quick and you don't want to have to spend the time, you don't have to do any of this because you can just eat it right out of the bowl. But since we're actually going to take it out of the container and make it into a heart, we're going to have to do a couple little extra steps. So that's why we're using overhanging parchment so we can lift the cake out and put it on a serving plate. And then just press the parchment paper down into the pan so it's sort of flush. Okay, like that. And set it aside. So in a small bowl, we're going to add 15 grams or 1 tablespoon of coconut oil or butter, and then quickly melt that in the microwave for 30 seconds. Once your fat is melted, to that we're going to add 2 tablespoons or 28 grams of packed brown sugar. I've made this recipe with just plain oil, but I find it tastes better if you use coconut oil or butter. We're also going to add 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla, and 3 tablespoons, which is 42 milliliters of milk. And this just gives the cake the moisture that it needs to rise and bake. And then whisk everything together so that your brown sugar dissolves. Now, a shortcut would be to do everything in the same bowl and not worry about keeping this separate. Since we're treating this as an elegant bake, we want to make sure that we get everything mixed well. So I'm going to do a couple extra steps just to make it pretty, right? And 7 grams, 1.5 tablespoons of cocoa powder, 1/8 teaspoon of salt, and 1/8 teaspoon of baking powder. Whisk it so that you can get the lumps out. Add your dry ingredients to your wet ingredients, and you can whisk out the lumps. It's gonna look like a cake batter. All right, so that's exactly what it should look like. It's gonna be runny. Now to this, we're almost done. We're gonna fold in 1.5 to 2 tablespoons of chocolate chips. You can use the minis, or you can use the regular size. I have found is that minis produce a slightly less chocolatey flavor because they're spread out a little bit more, and the regular size are a bit chocolatey because they're larger chunks. My husband prefers the minis. I prefer the larger ones because I really like my chocolate. But use what you like and what works best for you. Then we're gonna fold in 2 tablespoons of 6 chopped maraschino cherries and put that in your bowl too. And then fold this all together so that it's all mixed. So you can see the chocolate chunks and the cherry chunks in the batter. Pour it into our prepared baking dish. And that's it. So now just place it in the microwave and you're gonna heat on high for 1 minute and 20 seconds. And it might be just a little bit moist in the center, but we don't want it to overcook. So we're gonna let the cake cool for 1 to 2 minutes, so we can lift it out of the pan. If you don't intend on letting it cool and you want to eat it right now, go right ahead. You can eat it without the frosting. All you need to do is put your favorite ice cream on top and dig in. Eat it while it's hot. So technically, it's done. You could go ahead and enjoy it. But if we're going for that elegant Valentine look, it's going to take a little bit longer. If you want to frost your cake and then make pretty cutouts, then into a pretty shape, then go ahead and remove it from the pan using the overhanging parchment paper. Notice how easily it just comes out of the dish. And we're gonna let it cool completely, and in the meantime, we're gonna make the frosting. In a small bowl, we're gonna add 14 grams, which is 1 tablespoon of softened butter. If it's not soft enough, just put it in the microwave for about 10 seconds to soften it up so it mixes well with our powdered sugar. Add 30 grams, which is 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. And then just give it a quick whisk to mix the butter and the powdered sugar. All right, you can see that it's just sort of mashed together there. So we're gonna add 2 teaspoons of cherry juice. So when you make a frosting, you typically add milk or some other liquid because we really want the highlighted cherry flavor. I'm going with maraschino cherry juice. Whisk it together. All right, as you can see, it's not that pretty of a color, but you could go with this if you don't have red food coloring. It's just kind of a dull pink color, but to add more color to it, we're gonna add, I'm gonna start with 2 drops of red food coloring. Stir it up, see what it looks like, and then add a 3rd drop if need be. I think that looks pretty good as is. If it's runnier than you want, you can add some more powdered sugar. We're gonna fold in 1 tablespoon, which is 3 chopped maraschino cherries. We wanna highlight that cherry flavor, and then just stir it in the frosting. Frosting made, you can put this in the refrigerator until you're ready to frost your cake. So the cake and the frosting are pretty much made. So if you don't want to shape your cake into a heart or anything else, you could go ahead and put this on a serving platter, top your cake with the frosting, and dig in. We're gonna take it 1 step farther with the shaping. Once your cake is cool, just remove it from the paper. Notice how easily it comes off the paper. I'm actually gonna put it on a separate plate because we're gonna cut into it and I don't want it to leave a lot of crumbs on my serving platter. So then, you could just put this on your serving platter like so and frost it as is. Or you can cut out a shape. And since it's Valentine's Day, we're gonna cut out a heart. So you could freehand a heart with a knife and a stencil. I wanna use, this is an actual cookie cutter, and it is pretty much the same size as my cake. So, I'm just gonna line it up. You could give it a start by just cutting around with a knife. Use it as your stencil to remove any exterior crumbs. And then you've got a snack you can eat. Now you can see why I didn't put it on the serving platter. We've got all those crumbs. And then you can do a clean cut through with your cookie cutter. Use a spatula and then just place it on your serving platter. The last thing to do is to frost it. And I'm just gonna frost the top. I'm not even gonna frost the sides. We'll just leave it that chocolate, natural chocolate color. So you can see that it's a chocolate cake. And as you add the frosting, just smooth it out. Make it look like it's in the shape of a heart so that it follows the contour of your cake. Okay, take a look. You could leave the cake like this. You can see how thick it is all the way around. It's very consistent. And that frosting is very rich and indulgent, so that is just the right amount of frosting. If not, it might be more than you could want, which is why this is a good 2-person cake. But of course, you could eat this as a single serving if you choose. I'll never tell. You can add some mini chocolate chips over it and spread over it for a little extra chocolate, or you could chop up some chocolate chips, or you could do some just chocolate shavings from like a chocolate bar if that's what you have. Just did it on the plate and on top of the cake so that we know for sure that it's chocolate, right? As though we can't tell. So there you have it. Our chocolate covered cherry Valentine cake for 2. You can serve the cake now, or you can put it in the refrigerator for a couple of hours until after you've eaten your dinner and you're ready to eat it. The cake is light but sturdy enough to hold the frosting. The frosting is a pretty Valentine pink with bright red cherries. And then of course, you can see the chocolate dotted over the top. The cherries along with the chocolate shavings add elegance and visualizes the cake flavors. So if you were going to split this for you and your sweetie or your bestie, then you could cut it in half like that. So the frosting is creamy. You can spot the cherries and the chocolate dotted throughout the cake. This dessert defines what I would call chocolate covered cherry. Whether you're looking for an elegant chocolate homemade dessert for Valentine's Day, Or you're just craving something quick and chocolatey, this one takes the cake. To simplify this process, mix all the cake ingredients at once in a small bowl or mug without greasing anything or using paper. Once baked, you can eat it right out of the small dish or mug. You can even forego the frosting and simply add your favorite ice cream. I presented an elegant homemade version, but you can make the process easier on you. Share it or don't. It's all up to you. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing. Have a fantastic Valentine's Day and go bake the world.